You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
I have always said that kindness should be rooted in justice, grounded in action, and open to change. And I think it's the open to change piece that a lot of us get tripped up on, right? Because like our egos get in the way of, well, I always knew something a certain way.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Was a Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals. And Heather and I started off as two perfect strangers who just, met by chance and then embraced opportunity. We started this podcast. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success. Dude, you got to keep it fresh.
You got to keep it fresh.
8 times a week. 8 times a week we do this show.
You got to do we? We do the show 8 times a week? Then everyone's wondering why we only have 60 episodes.
In my mind.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is that I feel like all I do is this show, or I wish I could do this show more often?
I wish I could do this show more often. This is in my dream world. I'm Oprahing this into the world that I want 8 shows.
Yes.
Maybe not 8. Let's do 6. Let's do 5. We'll do 5. Let's have
6.
solid weekends.
5 is good.
5 is good.
Let's
Let's do
good.
5. Yeah, Monday through Friday live shows.
We could have a live broadcast.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
We'll do 5 shows a week. No 2-show days because those are brutal. Let's do that. We just need 5 guests.
I think we're being rude.
Well,
No.
Welcome. Have you heard us? We're not being rude.
I'm enjoying this. I like the banter.
He likes the banter. The banter is fun. This is why we were supposed to do a second interview this afternoon, and Alan's like, "Do it yourself," and I'm like, "It's not the same." So we're going to reschedule. But you guys, I am so excited to welcome my friend, Kaitlin Johnstone, to the show. Kaitlin is the co-founder of Kind Cotton, a clothing brand that perfectly blends comfort with purpose. And when I tell you they are comfortable, I really, really mean it. I have an entire Kind Cotton wardrobe. Kind Cotton's mission driven. Their apparel has created a community centered around positivity and support for incredible causes, books, and kids. And Kaitlin is here to share her inspiring story from the initial spark of the idea to building this impactful brand and what has happened since then. And I just love spending time with you. Welcome, Kaitlin.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Just because it's literally sitting on my desk right now and I have to acknowledge this or it'll eat at me the whole interview. Have either of you had these Whole Foods 360 apple cider Oreo ripoffs?
What?
They are the
most they look very good.
Delicious.
Ladies and gentlemen and theys and thems. Alan is random as fuck.
I love it. Are you ADHD?
I'm probably am.
Sorry.
I probably am, but I forgot your question.
Right? See, this is why I love you already, because our brains are like, yay.
I've been talking to my therapist, and I was like, what do you think? She's like, you have definite signs, but if you are on borderline, try this medicine. And then the medicine keeps me up. It's a hard time going to sleep.
Oh no, and you already have a hard time sleeping.
And so I'm just like, I think I'm okay. I'll do all right. But
yeah. I'm not medicated, but I clearly have ADHD and got all the testing and all that good stuff. So
did you really?
Oh yeah, just like a year ago, and I was like, oh, my entire life makes so much sense now.
But isn't it nice though when you get that diagnosis and you're like, oh yeah. You're like, okay, now I know how to handle what I've got. Yeah. And use the tools that are at my disposal.
Well, that's how I feel 100%. About human design. Caitlin and I did a human design reading. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing. Now I know, so let me work with this.
Show me what you're working with.
Exactly.
Okay. Alan, I'm glad you like your cookies, and I think we all have ADHD.
I like your cookies, Heather.
Well, let's talk about now. See, why do you make that sound so inappropriate? Alan and I didn't. No,
you're a really good baker. You bake. Your cookies are delicious.
Like a brother. A pain in my ass, but that's okay. Lots of love.
Listen. All right. Well, let's talk about covering up some cookies with some wonderful clothes and stuff.
Right. Just put a sweatshirt on top of your box of cookies. No. Gosh. Okay. So let's dig in, because I actually interviewed Kaitlin on the Brave Files, and we will link to that episode because it's a really good episode. But everything is different when you add an Alan Seals into the mix. So this is going to be a totally different experience. But this podcast is all about embracing chance and taking intentional risk. And my goodness, Kaitlin, from your perspective, can you share your story from that lens of taking intentional risk?
Yeah, for sure. So I was a kindergarten teacher in the state of Florida for 8 years. About 2 years into teaching, I was like, all right, as with many of the systems in our country, um, access to books and inclusive books was very, very difficult to come by. And I was like, what can I do about this? My partner, Kevin, had worked in custom apparel at the time, right out of college, and I came home one day and I was like, hey, this is really wild, but I have this idea. I want to start our own clothing company, similar to a Tom's model where it's like a 1-for-1, but with books. So every time someone purchases something, we donate a book to a child. And he was like, yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I think it's amazing. Let's do it. So I want to say for me, it was about 3 years. Basically until the pandemic hit. About 3 years, it was just like a passion project. I was still teaching. I was doing this at night when I couldn't sleep. And then Kev continued to do it part-time until about 2 years ago. So now we've both been doing this, like this passion project that we just had 7 years ago, full-time together for the past 2 years.
What was it that flipped you to full-time?
For me, the pandemic. We were living in Florida at the time, and like, I know not everyone's going to agree with this, but that's okay. I stand in my convictions, which is what I think
most people who listen to this show are going to agree with you, so it's all good.
So I was living in Florida at the time, and it was absolute crazy town when the pandemic hit.
Was then, but still is.
Yeah. Still is 100%, which is why we don't live there anymore, but that's a whole nother story. Or maybe not, because it intertwines.
I do think it's part of your story.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I was terrified because I had two much older parents who were very high risk. I had a newborn, and I was like, I am not going back into the classroom where people are like saying that they're not going to mask and vaccines weren't even out yet. Florida really didn't even do the whole online thing. Like they were like, no, this is fine. Like come back and give each other COVID. So had COVID not happened, I don't know that I ever would have taken the leap to do this full time. So if there is one like bright silver lining, I would say that's it for sure.
Well, was it I mean, aside from like the obvious political and health issues, right? Where did you just jump in without doing the financial analysis, or were you like, maybe I can make this work? I'm gonna, go here instead or whatever? Because like at the end of the day, we all got to pay our bills.
Oh yeah, no, I just totally jumped in because that's again going back to the ADHD, right? Like I'm very passionate, and I was like, I am not going to be a part of this. This is unsafe. I don't care if this works financially. No, I'm not doing it. So we didn't really think about that too much. And also at the time, we were super fortunate that my partner was still at a 9-to-5 where he was working from home. And, we could make do for about 6 months to a year on his salary if it didn't work out. So like we were super fortunate. It's not that we didn't think about it at all. I will say that I didn't think about it at all, which is why we have this beautiful relationship, because he probably thought about it a lot. So
I'm sure. And he wanted you to be safe and not go into an unhealthy work environment, all of those things. Yeah. So when you first launched Kind Cotton, how many products did you have?
Oh my goodness, like 4, maybe.
4. Yeah. They were the diversity and inclusion. Like, is that the piece? What'd you start with?
So when we first started, we thought it would be awesome to take like quotes from children's books because of the tie-in with the literature, right?
That's cool.
So we had like We All Can Dance when we put our mind to it from Giraffes Can't Dance.
That was my daughter's favorite book.
Did you have Goodnight Moon? The Goodnight Moon underwear?
I didn't. No.
Oh man, I want Goodnight Moon or like little critter socks.
We did not. We did not. It was still like trying to be trendy clothes, but with like a quote on it. And then we had one that had just like a little embroidered heart, and the Be Kind. And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So how did you go from that to expanding? I mean, you really have, and you said a little while ago, not everybody's going to agree with this, and I know that's because you get so much heat and so much hate
Yeah.
online by people who do not believe in equity, diversity, inclusion, all of the things that you do. We're not going to worry about that here because if they don't like those things, they definitely don't like us. So it's all good. They're not listening. But how did you go from those four things to really being a statement company for women's rights, reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights? And so we have, like I said, I really do have an entire wardrobe of your things. And I wore my ban Guns Not Books sweatshirt yesterday. I don't have it on today though.
I almost wore that today. We could have been twinning, but I had opted for this one. So.
Well, that one I wore the day before. The one you can see. Show your sweatshirt, Kaitlin. There you go. Love, empathy, compassion, inclusion, justice, kindness. I wore that one 2 days ago. So there you go. No, how did you make that transition? What happened to do that? And then, how are you parlaying that into this advocacy work?
Yeah, for sure. That's such a good question. I mean, I think it goes it goes back to me personally and like what I'm passionate about. So I decided very, very early on that I was going to be like this intricate part of Kind Cotton, right? Like if you were going to know Kind Cotton, you were going to know me. And I don't think that is very standard with businesses or companies. Like it's very, you post your product or your mission or like these cutesy videos. And I was like, oh no, I have so much to say. And I also think that as you're growing, when you know better, you do better, right? Like I would say like I've been on a anti-racist journey for, I don't know, since 2013. Like Trayvon Martin was kind of like my awakening, where I feel as though, the whole world woke up, or a lot of the world woke up with George Floyd. Who knows? I think a lot of people have gone back to not being woken up to that. And when I started recognizing that access to books was very much like a systemic issue, I started recognizing that our clothes should represent the mission that we were trying to achieve, the mission that we were putting out there. So we did have a lot of fallout in the very beginning. And this was very early on. I'm talking like a year into the company when we started putting out some more, I mean, to me, it's basic like humanity. But when we even put this shirt out, like the love, empathy, compassion, inclusion, justice, kindness, we had people kind of backing away from us, being like, oh, like, I thought you weren't going to get political. Oh, I thought this or that. And I'm like, I don't know what ever gave you the impression
are these things political?
Yeah, exactly. But also I will say that, yes, why are these things political? But I will also like counter that in the most, loving way, that everything is political, right? And like, for me to sit there and not talk about the things that are important to me would do a disservice to everyone. So
do your distributors, how does it work in terms of the process of, like, you come up with the ideas, you get them made, and then they have to be put on
Wait till you hear the answer to this.
and along, because what I'm getting at is like with the political angle to this, was it harder or easier to get all the stuff into stores?
So that's interesting. So we are only in like boutiques. So we do like a lot of wholesale
and
things.
Online.
But we are, so we are an e-commerce brand. Heather still can't ever believe this, but it's just me and Kev. It's just me and my partner. Everything. I'm the one typically
doing the designing, doing the all of it. All
everything.
Of it.
What?
So I am the one who typically comes up with the designs, like the ideas for the designs. Kev designs everything. He does the website. I do all of the social media. We pack and ship everything. There was a time when we like completely blew up in 2022, and we were packing over like 150 orders a day, and we could not keep up with it. And also like having a toddler and all of the other things that comes with running a business with not even like a virtual assistant. It's just the two of us. So we were like, okay, we need to do something about this. Got a warehouse space, was in the warehouse for about a year. And this is something that I love to talk about because I don't think that the average person understands how much small businesses like put in their blood, sweat, and tears, and also how much like they actually profit. Because after about a year of doing the warehouse, we were like, oh, like sales dipped a little bit. And we were like, let's say from our 100 and so orders a day to like 50 to 60 orders a day. And we couldn't do it anymore. We were like, this is not sustainable. We can't pay our mortgage. We can't host these free book fairs that we've been hosting. So we pulled everything out of the warehouse and now we're shipping everything ourselves again. But we're still here.
I did that once. I did that back in 2008, 2009.
T-shirts, yeah.
I did T-shirts and I
inappropriate
got a
ones, actually.
Oh yeah, they were highly offensive and inappropriate.
Yeah.
Don't look that up. And I've been a better person since then, I hope. And I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Washington Heights because my second bedroom was my warehouse. It was the only way I could keep inventory like that.
Yeah.
That was nuts. And I would take giant garbage bags of stuffed shirts and envelopes down to the USPS and just dump them in the bin and walk away. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. Oh yeah. Quitting. That's the best way.
Quitting.
So I quit.
Oh.
Good for you for not.
Kaitlin has not quit. And a lot of people think because a lot of these places will do print on demand and you do not do that.
The margin on that is so
and you house
small.
your product. Well, it is small, but it can. I just saw you exchange with somebody just last week that it gets difficult when you're looking in plus sizes or things for unique needs because it's hard to keep those things in stock and fulfill your mission. And that's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I will say that we do carry in most things extra small to 5X, which is far more inclusive than the average small clothing company. Like you will see that a lot of them stop at 1 to 2X. And I was like, we can't, again, it goes back to like our core values. We can't promote inclusion and then not have inclusive sizing, you know?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. And now we're back.
Okay, so Kaitlin, I'm wearing my Joyful Warrior t-shirt today, which is, my favorite Kamala t-shirt. I was described as a small child as a Save the Whales kind of girl. Have you always been an activist, or did you have some sort of life experience that tilted you that direction?
So funny because I just got asked this like 2 days ago. And I mean, I guess it's always something that I think about, but yeah, this kind of goes back to that neurospiciness, right? I was always
that.
I was always I was like loud and boisterous in my classrooms and always got like the little check mark for being super talkative. And I would question my teachers. And I mean, when I got around puberty, teenage years, I was probably not the kindest in doing so. But my parents never kind of like dulled my spark. They always would say, her loudness means that she's passionate. It means that she has something to say. She's still respectful in many cases, And I think it really allowed me to know that my voice mattered, particularly in a world where women's voices are so often suppressed. I think it was really special to have parents and like boomer parents who were like, oh yeah, feel your feelings. Like what you have to say matters. And I don't think that was very typical around my time of growing up. I also remember like this one particular instance. It's like one of my earliest memories. I was probably 4 years old. And I said to my mom, like, hey, is that Uncle Sean's boyfriend? And she was like, yeah. And made it like very normal. Like it was like men can love men, women can love women. You can love whoever you want to love as long as you're not, hurting yourself or anyone else. This is what love is. And I was always like a huge advocate for the queer community, even when I was super young, because I love my uncle so much. And I saw, inequities even at a very, very young age. So yeah, I would say it's always been in me, sometimes misguided, but it makes a lot of sense that I'm doing what I do now for sure.
It does. And for those of you who have listened enough and know the through line, Kaitlin is a projector like I am. And that's such a projector. Like we're a little too loud and we give information without people asking for it. We have to be invited. But, that's how we learn. And it's worth it.
The human design term projector.
We are a projector. You are a generator.
Yeah.
Which is
right?
Nope.
Manifesting
You're
generator
just
or
a generator.
Just a
You're
generator?
just a generator.
You can't plug me in because I run on my own battery, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, you're the guy who gets everything done. We have these great ideas and then you guys get them done. Except Kaitlin has to do it herself. I don't know what Kevin is. I want to know what Kevin is. Anyway.
No, you do. You do. You told me. I don't know why. I think it is. I think it is that
he might be a man, Jen.
Yeah, I don't know. Because it's definitely typically me who like comes up with these ideas. I mean, I shouldn't say that. He has a lot of amazing ideas too, but he can actually execute them. Whereas like when I have the ideas, he's the one executing them for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
He's
I like Kevin already. Kevin. I like Kevin.
I do have it. Yeah. He's a manifesting generator, which is what I thought. So they're multi-passionate and get shit done. And cool folks. But that makes sense.
What's the difference between generator and manifesting generator? Like, how can I? Is that a level up?
Both generators and manifesting generators have a defined sacral. That's the motor. So you have an instant connection to intuition, a hell yes or a fuck no. You know what's for you and what's not for you. Yep. There's no maybe. If you do a maybe, it's really a no. A generator is when you start something, you will see it all the way through. And if you've said yes to something that's a no, you will hate yourself the whole time. You will be miserable the whole time, but you will finish it, right? So
because I said I would, I have to.
Correct. And so the key is, and I would tell anybody, is to learn your physical sensational feeling of a yes or a no, not just what your mind says, but like what your body tells you is a yes or a no. And we can work on that later, Alan. But you can use this for Kevin. So sorry, we're wasting everybody's time here. I'm trying to go really fast. A manifesting generator has a little bit of manifestor in them. And manifestors are instigators. They're informers. They're here to come up with shit that no one's ever thought of before. And they are designed to be multi-passionate. They are supposed to start new things and try new things, but they do not have to finish everything that they start. They might feel like they have to, but they're not supposed to, because they have this huge toolbox of resources where they can go, oh, I know enough about that. I can do that. I can fix that. I can change that. So they're just here to learn and explore. And when it's no longer for them, to put it away and go do something else. That's the key difference. So my guess is Kevin does a gazillion different things. He's got a skill set for like everything that needs to happen within the company and probably your family.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they should be learning all the time. That's why. So manifesting generators are indecisive because they don't want to get stuck doing something that they think they might not be able to get out of.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
So my youngest daughter is a manifesting generator. So the language I use with her is, it's okay to give this a try. And if you don't like it later, you can change your mind. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can do something different. You get to change your mind. I just say it over and over and over and over and over again. Whereas with a generator kid, you would say, make sure this is what you want. Does this really feel good to you? Right? You would have a different conversation. Yeah. That's why human design is so powerful as a parent, because you can support each of your kids differently. So let's talk about kids and let's talk about books, because sorry, total tangent. Alan, maybe you and I should just
into it. No, I want to talk about this too again. Because
this is fascinating. Yeah, I'm going to have
everything that we talked about.
I'm going to have you dissect my kids later.
But maybe we should do a solo show sometime where we just talk about human design and kids and stuff. I don't know how that fits into taking intentional risk for creative success, but except that parenting is an intentional risk.
Yeah.
Or unintentional, depending on what happens. So I'm on your website, Kaitlin. Terrible segue. Cardcotton.com. The first thing that I see, clothing that makes a difference, one item purchased equals one book donated, and you've donated over 164,000 books, right? So how does the book donation work? Can I choose the book that I get donated and to where? How does that whole process work? Because I mean, that's an expense too. Talk about like finances and things. Donating books, that's expensive.
Oh, 100%. So that's what I think people That's the part we probably could have stayed in a warehouse, right? Like if we didn't give so much of our money away. Um, and I don't think people realize the expense of that. Like once in a blue moon, not so often, because I think the cost of everything is so expensive nowadays. But once in a blue moon, we'll get a comment that's like, "Oh my goodness, $30 for a T-shirt," and I'm like, "But you need to understand that we're buying blanks, we're having them screen printed, we're putting like this beautiful book that my husband made into each package that talks about our impact. There's all the packaging that goes into it. And we're also giving you really good products, like Heather said too. It's high quality. And then we're buying a book. So I have wholesale accounts with places like First Book, which is a nonprofit right here out of DC. And they do a really great job of having a lot of inclusive titles. 90% of the books that we donate either feature BIPOC, queer, disabled, or social emotional learning representation in them, because we are trying to make up for the fact that publishing children's books, on average, it's mainly white main characters or animals in the books. So we're really trying to make sure that children and families are seen and loved and valued for who they are. And then once I buy all of the books every month, I'm now hosting totally free book fairs. So like imagine your Scholastic book fair minus like, the really fancy stuff like the smelly erasers and all that stuff, just books. Because I don't have that much money. I wish I could give that too. But
I love a good strawberry eraser.
yeah, I know. Don't we all? But so I go in with like thousands of different titles to ensure that there is something for every single child. The kids get to walk through and they pick any book that they would like to take home for free. So we are at a point where usually we can afford about one free book fair a month. I say that because this is like the first time in history where we've been struggling a little bit. So our November book fair is coming up. And if anyone is listening to this, please, and you have the means to do so, check us out because we're a little shy of reaching our goal for our upcoming book fair.
You also partner with children's book authors, right? If they wanted to donate books to you, you could accept that, because we do have a number of authors and publishers who have been guests on the show. So,
100%. And I always feel bad about that because I'm a small business too. So I typically like to purchase from independent authors. However, if anyone is ever willing to donate, yeah, absolutely. We accept donations of any children's books for sure.
So Kaitlin, can you talk about why putting a free book in a kid's hand is important? Because so many people are like, well, whatever, just buy your kid a book or go to the library. Like this is, and then we're going to dig in, of course, to systemic issues, but I want to hear why this is such an important cause from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to when I was teaching, a lot of my students didn't have access to books at home, right? Like I had a huge library in my classroom. I was always finding reasons to buy my students books to take home and keep. The school that I was at, they were able to take books out of the library, but they were not allowed to take them home because the school, and anytime I say this, people are like, yeah, like similar to the look you just gave, Alan, people are like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Because they were scared that they weren't going to get them back. I mean, I think that's absolutely
because
ridiculous.
Systemic racism. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So children just did not have access to books. And when you start talking about, oh, well, they could just go to the library. Well, what if the caregiver that you were living with doesn't have access to a car? Well, there's public transportation. Well, the city that I was living in, public transportation was absolutely horrible. Bus stops could be really far away. You may not live within walking distance of a library. Or, yeah, exactly. Public transportation is not free. People are working 3 to 4 jobs just to put food on the table. So there are so many things that come into play that the average person would not recognize as being a barrier to books.
And library cards are not always free. They're free for me in my little upper middle class white community, but that's not the case everywhere. Now, I do think library access to digital products, which isn't what we want for kids. We want them to be holding books, but still has gotten better since COVID and since book bans, because like the Brooklyn Public Library, anybody
they're
in the
amazing.
United States can get a Brooklyn Public Library digital card. So they can get
Yeah,
access
for
to
sure.
audiobooks and digital books. Did you know that, Alan?
I did not. No.
Yeah,
No,
it's
that's
Cool. Or actually
interesting.
a number now. Yeah.
That's just down the street from me. We go there for our passport renewals.
There you
Well,
go.
there you go. You should go there for books. Do your boys love
We did-
books?
No, not unless they're about video games or Pokemon. And we're trying so hard, and they're like me. They're very like nerdy, technical minded. They don't like to sit still and read.
But
Books are
that's
so
the
fun.
important part,
Audiobooks could
though,
be
like,
good.
yeah, and
Oh,
finding what they're
absolutely.
into, like the fact that they love Pokemon ones, like that's what it's all about. And Heather, I realized I didn't answer your question about why they're so important, and that's exactly it. So like anytime I host a free book fair, there's always a couple kids, right? Like there's always a couple who are like, oh, there's nothing here for me. And then just the last one that I did, I noticed there was a little boy who was like, oh, this is stupid. Like, I don't want a book. There's no books here for me. Blah, blah, blah. I noticed he was wearing a Hamilton shirt. And I was like, oh, do you like Hamilton? Because you never know. Like, it could just be like a hand-me-down, whatever. He was like, do I like Hamilton? I love Hamilton. I've seen it like 500 times.
Kid was
Wow.
35, by the way.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought he was. And
Absolutely.
oh, he was so
Give me
into
my
it.
push pop, mummy.
Yes. Oh my God. But I had a book about Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you would have thought I gave this child $1 million, And
Love that.
he was like singing out the door, and
Aw.
stuff like this comes up every single time. More so, it's about representation, right? Like a little girl came in once, and she saw a book of another child who used a wheelchair, and she squealed with excitement because the little girl looked like her and was also using a wheelchair. I did a book fair in Ohio, and I always ask like what the demographics are before I come. And it was a very large Arab population, and I had a ton of books with Arab representation. And these two girls came up to me at the end and were like, you ask her, no, you ask her. And I'm like, it's okay, like just ask me, what's up? And they're like, why do you have so many books with women wearing hijabs? And I was like, I explained to them, exactly what representation was for them, like at a level they would understand. And they were like, thank you so much. Like both of our moms wear hijabs. We've never had a book with Muslim representation ever in our school.
Nice.
And this
Wow.
so it's these stories. Yes, access to books are important, but access to books in which children are seen is extra important.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I
I
love that.
I
And
also want to. I just want to touch on the representation real quick. You're representing pet owners. I need to see your cat that keeps popping in and out of frame.
I'm so sorry about that.
No, I love
why
this
are you
cat.
sorry?
I love
Well,
this
because I
cat.
know sometimes people are very like, and I feel so bad for my kitty because we just got a horrible puppy. I mean, I love her too, but our poor cat is just like down in the basement all the time now, and she loves me, and it's just the dog is not really a fan. So
Oh
I get
no.
it.
you
Well, hopefully
for
they'll turn into
welcoming her.
friends.
I know, I hope
Speaking of children's books, you recently, and not that recently, but within the last year, became a published author for your first book, which is a children's
Snaps.
book. What? I mean, of course, it makes sense. It's a natural extension of what you're doing. But let's talk about the intentional risk for creative success that you took in doing that, and how is being an author and getting that book out different than the work you're doing with your clothing?
It's so much harder. I
I know.
mean, as an author yourself, I'm sure you can relate to that. But it's actually right behind me. It's called Kindness Is. And it's basically taking the words that are on this sweatshirt and turning it into a children's book. So it's Kenzie's first day at a new elementary school, and she's super nervous, but her teacher is amazing. And there's all of these words like love and empathy painted throughout the school as opposed to like math and ABC charts. I mean, a dream world, right? We know that doesn't exist. But this is why fiction books are so awesome. And her teacher gives her a homework assignment, like, what does kindness mean to you? So all of the kids start raising their hand and telling like the usual things, holding the door open for a friend, using your manners, which of course are all super important. I never want to take away from that. But Kenzie is like, I feel like kindness is something more. And she comes back the next day and she presents her project and goes through like each of the words. So kindness is love. It's the way my parents took me in at night. Kindness is empathy. It's the way my friend held my hand when my pet goldfish died. Kindness is justice. My parents always say it doesn't have to happen to you for it to matter to you. And this was something I wrote the manuscript in like 10 minutes, shut my computer, put it away, didn't look at it again for like at least a year. And my best friend was like, hey, I thought you like wrote a book or something. Weren't you talking to me about that? And I was like, oh yeah, like maybe I should look at that again. And this is the one project that we have done through Kind Cotton that I saw through from the beginning until the end without any help from Kev. So I am like very, very proud of it. Not only am I proud of like the content of it, but just really proud that it was something I did completely on my own. So
That's cool.
but it's hard.
How exactly do you define kindness? Everybody's got their own definition. What is yours?
And how do you not, and what is it not? And I love hearing you tell this. Great question.
Yeah, this is so interesting because I actually started a Kindness Is pod where we literally talked about people's definitions of kindness. It's on a pause right now, but I have always said that kindness should be rooted in justice, grounded in action, and open to change. And I think it's the open to change piece that a lot of us get tripped up on, right? Because like our egos get in the way of, well, I always knew something a certain way. And this is what kindness is, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. So I think it's like really being able to hold empathetic nuance, which I think we could have a whole podcast on that during these times is becoming increasingly hard for people. And then I always give the example that niceness and kindness are totally different, right? Niceness is holding that door open for a stranger, but kindness is ensuring that we have systems put in place so that doors of opportunity are left open for all people, right? So that one day, hopefully, like equity isn't even a thing because everything is equitable. And that's obviously my dream world. But I think we're showing true kindness if we are people rooted and grounded in action in trying to accomplish a world like that.
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. And now we're back.
I have known this as an active anti-racist worker for a long time, but I saw it play out in my family that equity and equality are not the same thing because you have two boys, right? Like they don't need the same things at the same time, at least not always, right? So equality means everybody's equal, but we don't all start at the same starting point.
The best metaphor I have heard to explain this was actually from my older son's fourth grade teacher at the beginning of the year, because they get into equity, equality, social justice as part of the curriculum in the school he's in. And they did an exercise already where they were like, all right, you have a broken arm, you have a headache, you have a stomach ache, and and everybody gets and you have a cut and everybody gets a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You're equal, but it's not equitable. And they're like,
right,
whoa,
then they go around.
blown.
The first person says, well, my ouchie is on my hand. And the next person says, well, my ouchie is on my knee. And they're like, but you have to put the Band-Aid on your hand. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's so important. And I love that you, Kaitlin, are out here making this a topic of conversation, which is so important. And with the children, in so many different ways. You do a lot of collaborations with other organizations. I'd love to know more about that. And also, just to clarify, because I don't actually even know this, you had mentioned a book fair in a different state. Do you do book fairs everywhere? Like, how does that work if somebody wants one of your book fairs?
Right.
I wish. So basically, I will go. I will go anywhere that I can drive. Like it all comes back down to cost. And the way in which I was able to do that one in Ohio was because the school bought a copy of my book for every single student at like wholesale pricing. And then that basically covered the cost of my trip to Ohio to like put on this book fair for them. So, but I have done them. So I'm based in Maryland. I stay busy enough here in Maryland through word of mouth. And like I said, we can only at the moment do one a month. So I'm basically already booked out through the 2024-2025 school year. But yeah, no, anywhere like along the East Coast where it's fairly easy for me to drive within a day and not have to stay overnight in a hotel, I will absolutely go to.
Do you get the books there too?
Yeah, I literally load up thousands of books in my car
and bring
and do everything on my own.
So like you drive a semi truck to school
No,
drop
it's
off.
actually not. It's not as bad as you would think. I'll send you one of my videos. It's like the whole trunk, the whole back seat, and then like the passenger seat. To the point where like the passenger seat is beeping the whole way because they're like, oh, there's a human.
You don't have your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's so annoying, but it's. I know.
Yeah.
I put like tools in my passenger seat, and it's like, put your seatbelt on. I'm like, for my tools? Come on.
So annoying.
That's funny.
And then the car says, you're a tool. So, I get in a fight. But that's how it goes.
We talk a lot about what it means to be successful on this show and in my work with clients. And I'm curious, Kaitlin, how has your personal definition of success changed since you started Kind Cotton?
Oh, that's
a good question.
Really good question. Yeah.
You should host a podcast.
I can't. It's so hard for me to think clearly. And I mean that in like the best way. Because I'm laughing. But when I first started, like all I wanted to do was sell one product a day, because if I sold that one product a day, that would mean that I could fund the reading program that I started. Because back in the day, like 7 years ago, it was an after school program, which I would go to every single month, and I would do a lesson with the kids, and then they would get a copy of the book that I did my lesson on. We would do like science experiments and crafts and have a snack. It was awesome. I always wanted it to be more than just like a drop-off book donation, which is why I do the in-person book fairs now, so that there's more connection to it that way. And that was what I was like, okay, I could just do one a day. That was all I thought about as far as success. Now, as we have grown and shifted, and we talked a lot about just being very heavily focused on social justice, honestly, nowadays, on top of being able to provide these inclusive book fairs, my key indicator of success is if I can lay my head down at night and feel good about the work that I'm doing and good about it sounds so cheesy, but
no,
good about
it really
the person
doesn't.
that I am, just grounded within myself. Because like you mentioned earlier, there is a lot of backlash and a lot of hate and horrible things that have been said to me over the years. But if I know for myself that I am happy with who I am as a person and what we're doing, then that is all that matters. And that is my key indicator of success.
I like to be happy and to be a room without a roof. If you're happy. Okay. But Pharrell Williams, baby. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So, you were totally 80s. I hope that you're like, oh God, I couldn't stand this girl talking about this so much. But I just feel like I'm listening to myself sometimes. Everything is a song to me.
Everything is lyrics. Everything is lyrics.
Listen to our podcast more often, Kaitlin, because you get Alan on his ADHD journey every episode.
I love it.
I embrace it. I fully embrace it. Okay. Well, so looking ahead, with Kind Cotton and the brand and the clothing and everything, is there a legacy you hope to leave behind like this? Are you working towards any specific goal?
Yeah, our goal is 1 million books to kids. So I know that sounds crazy. But I'm like, hey, if I doing the math, we've already done 164,000. If I'm at this for 35 years, which I don't know if I'll be able to, then we would hit 1 million, but hopefully something comes about before that. Yeah, that's our goal. Hopefully we'll get there.
I love that. The last question that we always ask on our show is, what is your personal relationship with failure?
Ooh,
We're
that's
just,
another great
closing
question.
out with an easy
And I
one.
actually
No big
knew
deal.
that. Like I knew that. And I didn't prepare myself for this. So, I am someone who always feels like I'm never doing enough. And you know this, Heather. I feel like we've talked about it. And has focused a lot on like negative self-talk over the years. So there are things in my life that I feel like someone may not characterize as failure, but I always do. And like I've always been super hard on myself. But it's something that over the past couple of years, and actually, this is not some like weird plug or anything, but Heather's gratitude journal has actually helped me with
Aw,
that. Because no, it's like
thank
really
you.
amazing to give yourself like those little high fives at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, it's like I think where it's so ingrained in us to say like, oh, this sounds so silly, but it's really not. Like it scientifically works. So
It
now I'm
does.
trying
Yeah.
to approach failure with like a much different lens. Um, and it's something that I used to tell my students all the time that like when you quote unquote fail at something, it is an opportunity for growth and an opportunity for learning. And if you never fail, right? Like you never try anything, you never fail, then you're never going to grow and you're never going to learn. So I had like really taken those words that I used to preach over and over and over again to my kindergarten students and now to my daughter. And I truly have really started to embrace telling myself that. And I think it has made a huge difference for sure.
I love that.
I have heard so many times that the failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to change for the better. And
Uh,
I am 100% in your camp of like negative self-talk, not feeling like you're doing enough, all this shit. And while at the same time, like I'm in constant struggle between not feeling like I'm good enough and wanting to fail so I can be better. And then it's this nasty cycle that just,
yep.
keeps me up at night, like we've talked about. So there you go.
It takes real work. Like it takes real work and real intention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
To rewire that failure, and as women, the desire to be humble, which is a hot topic right now because Kamala Harris said there are a lot of women, and I do not desire to be humble. I was like,
same.
I felt like I was at church. Like, no thanks.
Yeah. Same. Okay.
But that is so hardwired in so many women. So anyway, whole nother topic. Kaitlin, how can folks find you, follow you, shop with you, but support what you're doing, donate books? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way is either Instagram, although Instagram hates me lately, but you didn't need to know that. So Kind's Cotton on Instagram or kindscotton.com is our website. We're on all other social media platforms too, aside from the one that thou shall not be named. So yeah, and there's also a lot of opportunities, like Heather was saying, either if you're an author to donate books, if you're a person who is just trying not to consume so much, I totally get that as well. Although we have super sustainable practices, you can also sign up to just donate $5 towards a book. Like we actually have clickable options for that, or however many as you would like. You could be a book fair sponsor or a teacher sponsor. We have a lot of cool things that I find myself not talking about much that I should probably share more. So thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I
that
still
is
want to
so
do a
great.
collaboration. I want to do a Joy
Me too.
collaboration.
Me
Can we
too.
do Joy?
Yeah.
Did you see that I
love
have a
it.
new book coming out called The Joy Experiment?
You didn't tell me that.
See, and this is why I don't like social media, because I don't see the people who I want to see. It's so frustrating.
Yeah,
But
I'm actually
congratulations.
doing. Thank you. I'm actually going to do a focus group, a research group, and take people through my 6-week Joy Experiment program. So I need a really diverse audience. So if you know people, and diverse sounds like it's a code word. I had a lot of white women say yes, and I love these white women, but I want a wider focus group. It's free, and there's even a little bit of compensation, and it's a $500 program, so it's free. So if you know anybody, I'll text you. I'll send you the info.
Okay,
but if anybody's listening and wants to join, I'll put it in the show notes.
I got some peeps.
Okay, good.
I definitely do, probably as well, for sure.
Kaitlin, I adore you. Thank you for being
Me
you and doing what
too.
you do out in the world.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
guys
you
for having
being
me.
you. Thank you for youing today. You've been a very good you today.
Thank you.
She's so cool.
Isn't she so cool? I love her. And she's so tenderhearted and kind. And this work takes a lot out of a person, not just owning your own business and running everything on your own, but being an out loud activist and anti-justice warrior. And I kind of love that she's able
It's a
to,
Sisyphean act.
yeah, I really admire that Kaitlin is able to stay soft front, hard back. Like she deals with a lot, but she just keeps rolling and doing what she knows is right. And I really do love the clothing. I really love the clothing. You all should go and get it. And there are so many types of products. There's gun control, women's rights, LGBTQ right, like everything. And they're
Read
super
band books.
quality.
I see people wearing that all over New York.
Yeah, does she have read band books? I don't know, but my favorite is Band Guns Not Books. I love that one. The product is amazing, and their mission is amazing. So I don't know. It was just really a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to chat with her.
Me too. Well, how can people connect with us and chat with us?
Oh, yeah, we love it when you do that. So we are on Instagram, Threads, and newly on TikTok. Was it? I know, right? Was it Chance on Instagram and Threads? And was it Chance Pod on TikTok? But if you type in Was It Chance, you're going to find us. Or go to me and it'll link to it. I'm Brave Heather on TikTok. And listen, we have, I think, 13 followers on TikTok. So if you are on TikTok, please go follow us. It'll make me feel better because it kind of hurts my feelings every time I go in there and there's no followers. You can email us at wasitchancepodcast@gmail.com. We check those ourselves. It's usually me. You're going to hear back from us directly. And we would love to know how you are out taking intentional risk for creative success. And we're so grateful that you listen.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us to the end and hit us up.
Yeah.
You've been listening to, I'm doing the outro.
Oh.
You've been listening to Was It Chance, the podcast about taking intentional risk for your creative success. I'm Heather Vickery.
That you didn't do it right. You're not Heather Vickery.
What? Huh? But this is the podcast.
He's not Heather Vickery. I'm Heather Vickery.
Yes, and Heather. Yes, and
he's Alan Seals. And we hope that you subscribe. Hit
There
the
you go.
subscribe, follow button. Stick around. We'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.